So the user is utilizing the application. The application has now sent the bit stream out onto the wire, and the bit stream is identified as to what type of bit stream it is. So now what we need is for the computers that are going to be involved in this communication to know about each other and to be able to communicate about how the communication is going to take place. In other words, the data itself, the messages themselves that are coming from the application, are not yet being sent, because before that happens, the two computers have to know that they can actually communicate with each other and send the message. So at the session layer, we have protocols that establish that connection. They manage that connection. In other words, what happens is there's a handshake that takes place between the two computers. One computer says, got some information I'm going to need to send to you. How fast can you receive this information? The other one might say, well, I've got a 10100 network interface card here, and I can go up to 100 megabits per second if you can do the same. And it says, yes, I can do that. So now the handshake has taken place, and they've decided on a speed. They might decide on, okay, well, I'm going to send you this many bits or this many packets at a time, and then I'm going to wait on your reply. So all of that communication about how we're going to proceed with communicating is at the session layer. So it establishes and it manages that communication, and when it's time, it also terminates that communication. Once the communication stream is finished, then the session protocols are responsible for saying, okay, well, that's the end of that communication. They terminate it so that another entity, another computer, can use those same resources. So the session layer is all about establishing, managing, and terminating communication within devices. And the types of protocols that are used at the session layer aren't nearly as well known as the protocols that are used in the application and presentation layers, because we're starting to get deeper into it. Administrators are probably familiar with the remote procedure call, because that's what the remote procedure call is all about, is establishing communication and communicating about how the communication is going to take place. Other protocols that are also at the session layer that are used by different type of hosts are Zone Information Protocol and Session Control Protocol. We don't need to get into all the specifics of how these protocols work because that's not part of the CCNA training. But if you take network training, specific advanced network training, you'll learn all about these protocols. What you mostly need to know about the session layer is, number one, that it is layer 5 of the OSI model, and number two, that it is responsible for establishing and managing and terminating communications between devices. In other words, it's not responsible for packetizing information or making sure that packets are delivered and otherwise they have to be acknowledged or otherwise they have to be resent. It's not responsible for that because there are other layers of the OSI model that are. And the next layer down is where all of that starts, and that's the transport layer. We'll talk about the transport layer next.